All right, I hit record, and this is our first coaches call of 2025.
Yay, 2025.
And I don't think the three of us have been together on a call since the dash,
You are
Hmm.
correct.
since the second week of December. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
So do we want to do holiday updates? Do we care about holiday updates? Do people care about holiday updates? Is this a thing people care about?
I don't,
What
JP, what is that? What is that? What does that mean? I don't
I
know
don't
the
know.
translation of
For
that
those listening
hand
and not watching,
gesture.
JP put his fingers to his chin in a
Don't make
cute,
it weird.
No,
smiling type
Jeff, you're
gesture.
making it weird.
I mean,
It's just like, oh, pray tell. Like, oh, yes.
Oh,
oh,
pray
Yeah.
tell.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, best let's do it this way. Um, Either most interesting thing that happened in your life over the holidays. Let's do that.
Wait, no, you said either. That means there's an option.
Or the best gift you got or gave. I got a new fridge. It wasn't really a gift. My old fridge died, but I did get a new fridge.
Do you love it?
I do love it. I think the best thing that happened for me over the holidays, though, was my family discovered a lot of different games. Like, because the college students were home, so we were like playing all kinds of games. So we played Dutch Blitz, which is like a speed card game.
Hmm.
And my daughter is way too good at it. She is currently undefeated, and we're card game playing people. So like
Oh,
her being her constantly, but she's so freaking fast that none of us can keep up. So we don't play that anymore. And then my son actually took dice and pieces of paper and redrew a game that he plays on the video game Assassin's Creed. And we played that a lot. It's like a little war game. You roll dice and kill each other's things and get cards. But he actually like created it by hand. So that
That's
was
cool.
those were
wow.
both very cool. Yeah, those
Yeah,
were fun.
That's awesome.
that's cool.
Yeah. Anything interesting happen with y'all over the holidays?
Um, well, I feel like I have to say things, so I will.
I
Please
Uh,
know.
do.
I got my nephew. We found our Nintendo 64 in the basement, and he really wanted a
Nice.
Nintendo 64, so free gift on our end, but really nice, and
Nice.
it works. So that
Nice.
was a plus. I got a thermal label printer because I'm an adult, and my parents were like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "Well, I need to print labels." So
Nice.
honestly,
Oh, the
though,
joys of adulthood.
I will say though, because like I hate printers and ink printers because I think it's a stupid thing and like they have expiration dates for ink and that's not real.
Mhm.
So
Mm,
printers anger me. And so I was
yeah.
like, oh, thermal printer, obviously, because I don't get an extreme surplus of things to ship out, but I get it just enough that a thermal label printer is genius. So,
Yeah.
I actually worked in an office once where the office manager hated replacing the ink so bad that whenever a printer ran out of ink, he threw the printer away and went and bought a new one.
I mean,
honestly, I
for
don't blame
some
him.
of them, it's actually
It
cheaper.
was, he
It
bought
is.
super cheap printers,
Oh,
Yeah.
but he
yeah.
kept throwing, we had like a stack of, in a corner in the office, we had a giant stack of unused, like dead printers that he was just like, I'm going to take them to the dump, leave me alone.
It's funny.
Yeah.
So the
And on your note of games, our family has been playing this game called Forbidden Desert, which is really
Okay.
fun. It's a cooperative game, and my family is not the biggest into like this is like a pseudo board game, but it's not actually. But it's a cooperative game, and we're all trying to like find these things and then like get to the end point by the end of the game. And
Nice.
it is a very difficult game to the point where you're more likely to fail at the game. And so we have yet to win, but my family continues to ask me to bring the game. So it's a fun game.
Okay.
so
That's great.
cooperative game meaning like you win or you lose as a team.
Yes. Yes, you have to work together and everyone has like unique advantages of what their like character can do. And basically your airship exploded and you have to find the four parts. And so like you're
Nice.
going throughout this board game that changes every time you play and there's a storm that's building up sand and like you have only a certain amount of water. It sounds complicated, but it's super
No,
easy
it
and
sounds
really
super
fun.
fun. That's awesome. I'm here for
Yeah.
that. I'm such a board game nerd. I'm going to a Catan party next week.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I know Laura will never play Forbidden Desert because it's a cooperative game and not
I know.
competitive.
I was wondering, like, why would anybody play a game that they can't win?
Well, you win or you lose, but you win or you lose
Yeah,
together.
but the point of winning is that you beat other people.
You could be the
Yeah,
best
or
winner of the tribe.
you could
I mean, I'm
overcome the
always the
challenges
best winner.
together and come out.
It's really funny. Laura, what about you? Any good gifts? Anything interesting over the holidays?
Um, no, we went pretty low key. We didn't really do gifts this year. Um, yeah, we just went really low key. I did on a Black Friday sale buy a 3D printer that I have
Wow.
not yet taken out of the
Fancy.
box.
Oh, you got to tell us when
So
you do. I'm so excited to see how that works.
I
That sounds
know
really
I'm
fun.
very, very excited about it, but in order to find a place to set it up, I have to rearrange, and who
Hmm.
has time to rearrange furniture?
Yeah.
So, and since I live in a townhouse, I can't rearrange furniture at 1 a.m., which is the time of day that I actually want to rearrange furniture because
Hmm.
my neighbors get very upset.
Yeah.
So it's like this conundrum. So
I can't
I
wait
don't
to
know.
see what you print.
I
I'm
was going to
very
say
Yeah.
maybe by
excited about this.
2026, I'll be able to tell you I've printed something.
I'm hoping you're printing like whole humans. This is my,
I mean,
Oh,
obviously,
you
why else would you get a 3D printer?
yeah.
look at this human I have printed.
Human I
I
printed.
mean,
I shall not transfer my soul into him.
I just need other people to play against in games because if I could bring my like 3D printed people to my cooperative game and I'm like, this is my
This
team,
is my
then I
team.
feel like a cooperative game
There it
might
is.
work.
I
There
love
it
this.
is.
Okay, I'm really not this much of a narcissist.
It's not
Just leave it
narcissism.
there.
You
It's not
just like
narcissism.
being
It's
competitive.
I
competitiveness.
do like to be competitive.
Yeah.
It's
You know what? I
fine.
don't even know that I like it. It's just like so ingrained in me. It's like in my DNA.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Next
You
topic.
ready?
We got
Sure.
topics. So coaches calls, we do topics. So I guess
I
I
don't
didn't
think
do a
so.
theme
I think
song.
this is the first time we've done topics. I feel like the last couple of times we've just kind of like hung
We've
out.
just chatted. Yeah.
We
I
had
don't
I
know.
don't know.
topics.
I felt like I
Really?
needed structure for
I don't
us.
know.
Hmm.
I'm very insecure in 2025. It's an
Oh,
insecure year so
great.
far.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's not going to make any of your lives harder.
How do we make that better for you? Unless
I
you
don't
like
know.
it, in which case lean into it.
I don't like it, but I don't know
Um,
how to. Well, I'm working on it. We'll get there.
okay.
Okay, what have we been working on? Yeah, where this is a Jeff therapy session. You thought it was a coach's call. It's a Jeff therapy
I
session.
mean,
That's what
I
this
was
is.
going to lean into that, but then you asked a question that had nothing to do with your therapy. So I don't,
Unless this is like, what have you been working on to improve yourself?
I meant like, writing wise, or editing
Oh,
wise,
okay,
but
okay,
you
okay,
it can
okay.
also be to improve yourself, I guess, if that's what you want to talk about,
all right,
JP.
well, you know what? I'll go first and
I'm
I'll
being
answer
weirdly
both.
aggressive. I'm sorry. I've killed the coach's call. Damn it.
No, I will
No.
answer both. So
Oh,
I am avoiding social media.
Mm.
nice.
So in order to do that, I have replaced doom scrolling with micro learning. And I have
Wow.
an app that gives me little like games to play for micro.
Nice.
It has been really fun, but I'm learning so much about myself because if I try to play the games in the morning, I am not as successful at them as when I play them in the evening. I actually get better scores in the evening, which is really funny to me. So that is what I'm working on to better myself. I'm
Mm.
Nice.
working on writing wise is the How to Edit Yourself Like a Dialogue Doctor book.
Yeah, we're excited about that.
How's
That's
that
going to be
going?
great.
Slow. It is going slow,
They always
but
do.
it is moving. It is moving forward.
Perfect.
Not very
Yeah.
fast, but it is moving forward. But I did just apply to be a presenter at or a workshop or whatever they call it at the AuthorTube Writing Conference in June again.
Ooh.
I
Nice.
presented with them last June. So maybe I used some of the tools that we taught in the class as the presentation. So
That's fantastic.
in a perfect world, they will accept me and the book will come out around the same time.
Around in June. That's
So
great. I love that.
that is a perfect world of 2025.
That is a
But
perfect goal. That's
since my
fantastic.
3D printer has been in a box since November. I
Yeah,
don't
We don't
know.
need to worry about the 3D
that's
printer. You're
amazing.
fine.
I mean,
I
I'm
love
gonna
it.
3D print the book. All
Yeah.
the book jackets will be 3D printed.
That's really
Love
fun.
it.
So that was me.
Nice. I can go next. It's been a very weird December. It's been a weird fall, mostly because I had like a tuition crisis with my kids because college is freaking expensive. And
Yes.
so, and all of their tuition went up this semester. And you don't need the ins and outs of my financial crises. But so, like, the fall was about finding ways to earn to keep them in college. So I edited two books in November and December. Um,
Congratulations.
it was a lot. It was a lot. They were both well over 100,000 words. And so it's burned me out a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. They both came out really well, I think. I was pleased with um the author's excitement about them, which was good. And then I've started a friend called me and was like, "Hey, I have some he has just taken over a company and he's like, I have a team that needs help. Can you do executive coaching?" And so I was like, I've never done executive coaching before. And he's like, well, he and I have led teams together before. He's like, I just need you to teach them how to lead teams. I was like, okay. So I put together this like 5 session deal, and now I'm doing that with a ton of people. And that was a ton of work at the 1st of January. It's really fun. I get to sit with people and talk about their leadership, and it's neat. But it was a lot of writing, and I could probably get a book out of it. I don't know that I necessarily want to write leadership books. I've read a massive amount of them. But so I was working on that in early January, and it's been really great. But it has kind of taken me away from writing. And I last year I don't want to use the word wasted, but that's the word that kind of comes to mind. Um, I got involved. I've talked about it on the podcast before. I wrote a like memoir, theology book that I did a podcast for. I actually have the sweatshirt on today. I did a podcast for. The podcast never took off. It never went anywhere. It was seriously one of those things of like people love this topic. They just don't seem to like me talking about this topic. So which is fine. But so I'm frustrated with myself that I haven't written any fiction outside of the occasional Nerds episode for like a year and a half, but I haven't done a standalone novel for almost 2 years. And that's like I kind of realized that in December. I was like, man, that makes me really sad. Um, because for the last 10 years, I've done at least two, if not one novel a year. Some years I did three. And so I was just really bummed to realize that like I spent a year and change on this weird memoir that is not going to get published and is just kind of sitting in a drawer. And it brought out kind of weird feelings in me that I wasn't real thrilled to be having, which is why it's not going to be published because I don't want to talk about it. But so anyway, I'm trying to get back into fiction. I'm trying to rally that a little bit, and it's harder to rally than I thought it was going to be. Um, because there's just a lot of like self-doubt. And I think it just, when you haven't done something for a while, you're like, can I still do this? There's that weird fear of like, maybe I've lost this muscle, which is a weird thing to say because I have been writing Nerds episodes. Like, we've got, I don't even know how many, 24 episodes into season two. Like, I've written 24 chapters of a book over the last year and a half, but I haven't sat down and plotted something new. I haven't sat down and like figured out my own growth arcs. And it's weird to say that like I get on camera all the time and figure out other people's growth arcs, but I
Mhm.
haven't figured out my own for a while. So I don't know. I have a book in the works. I'm almost done with the planning because I can't just write a normal book. It's in second person. Um, and it's an action adventure in New York.
I mean,
It's
you've been
about
wanting to write a second person book for a
I
while.
have, and I was finally like, you know what? JP is very busy, which we're gonna hear about in a second. I'm super excited what's going on with you because you're awesome. And I was like, when can we start Nerds again? You were like, I'm booked until April. I was like, great. I have like 3 months to crank out a stupid like weird book. And so that's what I'm doing between now and then. And it's I think it's going to be fun. It's about two guys who are trying to join a secret society by winning tokens from people who call themselves guardians. And so you have to find a guardian and then do a weird task that they give you to do. The tasks are oddly vengeful against people they don't like, and some of the guardians' tasks actually like cause them to compete with each other. It's a 24-hour race, and the team that completes the most tasks gets to join the guardians. So it's like a action adventure romp through New York with lots of hijinks. That's my written in the second person.
Hmm, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Why in the second person? I don't know, but it has to be. It's actually, and that's not totally true. It's actually second and first person because it's the opening line is you don't really remember what happened, or you don't really remember what we just did because it opens with the you character in the hospital bed, and then it's the first person character telling the whole story to the second person character. So we'll see how that. It
Hmm.
might be really obnoxious. I might get 8,000 words in it, and I'm like, man, I hate this. So we'll see. Yeah,
You'll
so that's what
see.
I'm
It'll be
that's what
fine.
I'm working on. That's where my head is right now.
Seems like a good place to start back in.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, if you're not gonna go genre, go weird.
Yeah.
That's
well,
my
just picking something, we hear authors all the time tell us, I don't, I've been working on this, but I had to set it aside. I don't know where to start. And my thing for them is always start with something that feels exciting to you. It doesn't matter where
yeah.
it goes, and it seems like you're excited about it. So way to
I'm ex
pick a
and like a true nerd writer, I'm excited about the challenge of weird things. I really like the idea of a first person narrator that's unreliable. And so I really like the idea that the you character is laying in a hospital bed and doesn't know why, and the first person character is weaving this wild, insane story that like may or may not be true. I really like that. Yeah. So that's where this whole thing has come from.
nice. Well, I'm excited to read it.
Yeah, maybe not. We'll see. Anyway, that's enough. That's enough about what the weird projects I'm working on. JP, how about you?
I'm gonna try my best for this to not be a ramble of things.
No, we want your ramble because you were like
Do
winning.
it.
I'm
Ah,
just doing a lot of things. Okay, so in December, I finished up the book five manuscript for the Leah Ackerman series. I tried to get that done like in a month. I technically got it done last week. But I'm still claiming I got it
Nice.
done in December.
that's a
That's
Yeah,
not
month.
true.
you get credit. The holidays don't count. You
That's a
win
month.
Yeah,
December.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's the one you write with a co-writer who shall not be named
Yeah, A.B.
because he
Cohen.
doesn't exist.
A.B. Cohen. So I do write with Abe.
He's not real.
He is. So yes, that's book five. He's working on the outline for book six right now, and then that's the end of that series. So I'm kind of excited to see that come to completion.
Nice.
Um, yeah, in the whole meantime of that, I've been working on the project. I think at this point I can probably talk about it because I'm over halfway done with it. But it's the project with Tapas, which is a company that owns Radish. They originally did web novels and now they're doing or web comics and now they're doing web novels as well. And so I've uh, I've done a contract with them and I'm working on a cozy queer fantasy with them. I'm over halfway through the contracted episodes that I have with them, and it's like 56,000 words of edited stuff. I've been
Nice,
doing
man.
2 chapters a week,
Damn.
which has been a
Wow.
journey. And like I have like my outline for this whole thing, but like my entire process is just how can I continuously break the outline. So it's been
Mm.
really fun to just like, oh shit, now I have to rewrite the outline. Um, but it's really fun because this is my like third cozy fantasy that I've written that's like the longer form, and it's sort of delving into like character trauma and past and like playing with like growth in a retreat function and like people with power sort of realizing how to use that as a good way instead of using it for their like superhero or supervillain ways that they were beforehand. So it's really fun. I really enjoy writing
Mm.
that one. Um, now that I finished the manuscript for book five, I now need to work on edits for Mosswood Apothecary because
Mm,
that is coming to Kickstarter sometime in March, I think, which I have pretty good numbers on for people that have hit the notify me on. So that's been
that's
nice
awesome.
to see. I'm excited for that. And then also in December, and the marketing side of things, in December, I decided I didn't want to do Amazon ads for Mandrake Manor anymore. I was like, I'm spending a decent amount of money on ads, and while I am getting sales through it, it's really annoying. Um, so I was following what Sasha Black was doing. I really doubled down, unlike Laura, into social media. And I figured out a pretty good pattern of things so I can make my stuff really quick, but I'm doing like 3 videos a day or like 3 TikToks a day. And it's working out pretty well. So it's been interesting. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Congratulations.
I'm super excited
it's a
for you,
lot of
man.
time. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's really great to see like your books getting readers and accepted and like moved. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I'm really pumped. Um, yeah, yeah.
And
Anything
then
else going on?
in April, we can maybe work on nerds.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to work on Nerds.
Yeah. It's been fun too because I have the community I have over on Twitch where I do the
Hmm.
productivity streams. And so I've been really like leaning on them more as I lean away from paying for ads and like I've been open about
Hmm.
it. And they've been really receptive about
That's great.
like whenever I have things to share, they try to also share it as well. So it's kind of nice to have these like cheerleaders that I can lean on,
Yeah,
which is also nice.
that's amazing.
Fantastic.
When do you do, for anybody listening to this that doesn't know, when do you do Twitch streams?
I try my hardest to do it as many days as I can. Sometimes the office calls me in, but I start at about 5:45 a.m. Central Time,
Hmm,
and on the weekdays I'll go until just before 8 a.m. Central Time, and then on the weekends about 11 a.m. Central.
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Um, Very cool. Okay. Anything else we're working on that we left out?
I don't know.
JP is like, you have like 10 more things, but yeah,
I do have a couple, but I just figured I'd skip
are they
those.
good? Well, are they fun? Tell us what they are.
Uh, can I? I don't know if I can say who it's with, but it is with
That's fair.
someone that we know. And I'm
Ooh,
halfway through a manuscript with them for another really fun, like queer romance kind of
nice.
thing. Yeah.
Very good. Do they live out of the country?
I will not answer your questions, but
Damn it.
maybe.
Apparently,
Yes.
we're not allowed to play 20 questions.
Yeah. I already know who it is now. I'm just kidding. Um,
Probably do.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything. Laura, you have anything else to share going on?
No, I can't
Okay.
be an overachiever like the two of you. You get one project from me, a decade. That's
That's
it.
one project in a decade. But what a project it is. Somehow you still win. Um,
Well, I mean, obviously, that's
uh,
the competitiveness in me. If not, I rig the game in my favor.
and the game is who wrote the Edit Yourself Like a Dialogue Doctor book the fastest? Laura has won. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Um, okay, these are some topics we got from the dialoguers in the Dialogue Doctor community. Oh no, we have one more.
Hmm.
Good stories or books you've enjoyed lately. I can go first while y'all consider. I this year have taken up the challenge to read a book a week. Um, and I am refusing to read things that might bring for like strategic reasons in my book a week. I'm just reading things for fun because I don't know if you can see the theme, but I'm really trying to like refine my love for fiction again. Um, I started a podcast with Tom for the same reason, called Our Podcast About Books. And that's been fantastic. It's been really fun. But so I just read this book called Rejection. Uh, I'm not going to try to say the author's name because I destroy it every time I say it, and it's just not even. It's more an I think respectful for me to not say his name, but it's Rejection with an exclamation point. It was the most. It's a collection of short stories all about like people in their 20s and 30s in modern America trying to find connections with others and facing mass rejection, and then the way that they redefine their identity in the midst of that rejection. And it is a hard, if anybody wants to go find it, it is a hard R sexually and not the fun kind. It's like the sad. In fact, there's a heartbreaking story about a guy who's trying to connect with his partner, and the guy, he's a virgin who's like really been into a lot of porn, and his expectations of sex are so high they can't connect. It's really a tragic. Like I was crying at the end of it. It was really hard to read, but the book's amazing, and it's got the best ending of any book I've read. The book ends with a rejection letter for the book you just read. Well, the last two short stories, the second to last short story is an internet conspiracy theorist trying to uncover this big. There's six stories, and then there's a seventh story that's an internet conspiracy theorist trying to debunk the sixth story you just read as an internet conspiracy, and it's hysterical. And then there's a final story that is a rejection letter from an agent to the author, rejecting in complex and very painful detail why the book you just read should never be published. And it's hysterical. It's the best ending to a book I've ever read. It's hysterical. It was really good. So I highly recommend it if you're okay with like sex stuff in a book. Yeah. If you're not okay with sex stuff and cussing, don't read that book. But if you're okay with sex stuff and cussing, it's a great book.
How are you picking your books for your book a week?
It was at random, literally, like
Hmm.
just like, oh, that one looks good. But for season two of our podcast about books, Tom and I are doing the New York Times put out a list that was the best books of this century, the best books of the last 25 years, pretty much.
Nice.
And so there's like 45 novels on them, and a lot of
Mm,
them are really interesting. So I'm slowly working through those now. That's my
nice.
next. Yeah.
I was supposed to read Salem's Lot for your podcast, but it is so painful. It is so, I don't know how Tom made it through. I feel
Tom
like it
kept
would
telling
be,
me, he's like, is Laura ever going to finish Salem's Lot? Because I read it and I'm mad about it.
I know, I feel like this would be the best podcast ever because Tom and I finally would agree on something. But
Yeah. I didn't read it. I when you told me it was going poorly, I was like, I'm going to wait till she finishes it and then I'll read it real fast.
yeah, no, it is like, it is so painful that the idea of it reminds me of when you made me read The Sun Also Rises, and like it just sucks all of the joy out of reading. I bought the book, I bought the audiobook, thinking that okay, sometimes I'll read and sometimes I'll listen to it. I
Oh
can't even turn the
man,
audiobook on.
that's
It's
really funny.
just so painful.
I love it.
So
That's hysterical.
I feel like we could do a recording on it if you want, but I've only read the first 45 pages.
We'll just call it the missing episode because it's the only episode of season one we didn't record.
I
It's
mean, we
the
can
Salem
still
Slot
I
episode.
feel like we can still record it.
I don't want to read it, and
Tom,
I
I feel
can't
like
come
Tom and I have enough to talk
enough
about in the first
unafraid.
45 pages.
That's right. I'll send you the new list. I'm putting together the new list of books, and you can find a good one on
Okay.
there. And there are some horror
All right.
novels on there too. I was surprised. They rank some horror novels as the best books of
All right.
2025.
But if
Yeah,
Tom wants to talk about it, I am happy to talk about it.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Have
That
you
was
consumed a good story?
I have. I have. So a couple of months ago, you did a what's your group called? I never remember what it's called. The group that does the twice a
Support
month,
team?
the support team. I attended one of your support team groups, and I believe it was Roland that told me about a
Oh,
book.
that wasn't a support team meeting. That was just a dialoguer meeting. That was
Oh,
just like people in the
okay.
community showing up. Yeah.
Well, whatever it was, you schedule them, and they're usually at a time when I can't attend, but I was able to attend this one. So we were talking about reading and how people read multiple books at a time, and that's very confusing to me. Um, and why are you shaking your head?
I'm in the same boat as you. I'm like, what the hell?
Oh, yeah, like how do you do that? So
Three right now.
yeah, like,
I'll just forget about them.
well, it's not that I forget about them, but when I enjoy something, like I want to consume it as fast as
Yeah.
possible. So I don't eat, I don't sleep, I just read.
See, I'm
So
reading a craft book, I'm reading a leadership book, and I'm reading a novel.
yeah, I don't, that,
That's
It's
nice.
like taking my medicine before I have something fun.
wow. See,
Yeah.
that's the disciplined version of you. I have zero discipline. I'm just all like, impulse control issues. Just,
Hmm.
I'm not going to work. I'm not going to do my laundry. I'm just going to read this book because that's all I care about right now. Anyway,
Hmm.
it's a series of three books by Theodora Goss. It's the Athena Club series. It's about the children of monsters and
Ooh.
how like the monsters were part of a scientific community before like you weren't allowed ethically to like create monsters. Um, and it is a masterclass on voice. She does this thing where she moves between the main characters. There are like five main characters. She moves between the main characters' points of view, like mid chapter.
Mm.
And it is amazing because when she changes perspective, there's never a, oh, I don't know whose perspective it is. And she also does this really cool thing where in the middle of the narrative, because they're telling the story of something that's already happened to the group, in the middle of the narrative, she has the other characters interrupt on the storytelling. So it's like if you're at a party and somebody is like telling a story and other people at the party were there and they're like, wait, 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 you're getting that wrong, or you can't
Mm.
say that, or whatever. And they're in the middle of the chapter. It's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
So if you want to understand better about writing point of view or voice from a point of view, I would definitely recommend the Athena Club series.
It's in the
They're
club. Cool.
fantastic. And shout out to, I think it was Roland who gave me this suggestion. So nice work. And also, I have read nothing but these books since I started these books
Nice.
on Friday of last week. I'm on book three.
Ooh,
Very cool.
very nice.
Yeah. So,
JP?
Well, I'm not as exciting. Story-wise, I haven't really like been picking up a lot of books recently. My brain is too fried, I think. But
Mm.
I have devoured all 6 seasons of a show called Game Changers, which is on Dropout TV, and
Okay.
it is basically this idea of a game show, except every time the game changes and there are different rules. And usually they pull the rules from like other game shows and they try to put a spin on it and try to make it funny. It's Dropout TV is a lot of like improv and a lot of like comedians go on there. And there's just been some really good ones. There's some really awful ones, but like they did their own like Survivor, which was just really funny to watch. And then there was one where they basically had three people that were from an improv Shakespearean thing come onto set and they just like gave them little prompts and they made a whole Shakespearean play in 30 minutes. It had a
Wow.
full cohesive story to it with little bits of like add this in if you want extra points or add this in every once in a while. And it was extremely entertaining to watch. And I love watching improv stuff because, especially when writing, like there's something about seeing how someone interprets what they're being proposed that really like contributes to how I like to think about writing and how I like to like just prompt myself into writing is try to like turn and change ideas. That's one of them. On Dropout TV, there's also the second season of Dungeons and Drag Queens, which is amazing. Um, it was a lot of drag queens from RuPaul's Drag Race, and they came on during the first season, and they're the same ones for the second season. But um, it oddly like took off and grabbed a lot of attention because you had the nerds that loved it, the people that loved the drag queens, but then oddly there was people that found this like opportunity to learn about Dungeons and Dragons through the eyes of people who weren't familiar with it at all and could
Yeah.
like learn about it. And so it was really fun seeing how they were like interacting with like the storyline and how they were just sort of bringing in their own wild and crazy ideas. And again, this is why I love watching these sorts of improv and random acts of chaos because I think that it really helps refresh my well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check both of those out. And I'm Laura, I'm also already as we were talking about the books that you were talking about. But yeah, those sound incredible. Sounds really fun.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
pulled up Dropout TV while you were talking just so I wouldn't forget it.
Yeah, yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, topic number two. I guess three. Topic number three.
4 technically.
I don't
Is
know
it
if we know how
four?
to count.
Yeah, you had another one before
We're
that.
writers. We don't do math
Damn
stuff.
it. See, it's 2025 and me. We're just not getting along so far. Okay, so I'm blaming the year, the whole year. It's the whole year's fault. Uh,
Do
we
it.
got a request to talk about social media. And I think this is fascinating because we're in three very different places, I think, with social media.
Mhm.
So who wants to go first?
Do you want me to go first? You can just wreck social media after me.
I'm not gonna wreck social media. Yeah, I'm not gonna wreck social media. I'm just gonna
Um,
say anybody that's on it's a fascist. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna say that.
perfect, perfect. Um,
Wow. It's
I
a
just
good thing.
said
It's a
I,
good thing I'm already off of it because that
yeah,
means I'm
just
winning.
I'll
the
go see
only
you all
reason I
later.
said that,
Bye.
JP, was to see your face. I don't believe that. I just yeah, sorry.
Fascist. Wow.
I'm just throwing out my
Well,
words.
well, um, yeah. So I mean, like your question is, what are we doing about social media, right?
I think the question is like it seems to be changing, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think couched in this question is like, hey, Meta's changing how they operate
Yeah,
again. They
yeah.
always are. They're changing again. There was a big drift over to Blue Sky. TikTok, I had to watch my team. Okay, out TikTok was banned and
Mm-hmm.
then unbanned, but you still can't re-download it. So like two of my teenagers deleted TikTok from their phone when it got banned because they're like, well, I guess this is over. My daughter did not. And then like 4 hours later, she was like,
Mm-hmm.
I am the champion because I still have it. And they can't get it back. Like, so
Oh,
it's just a funny,
that's
like,
funny.
yeah, it's just a really weird. It was weird to watch them lose TikTok because I have two college students and then a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 13-year-old who does not know what TikTok is and shall never. The 15-year-old's actually too young for TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
He's not interested in it. He's like, that's what old kids do. And so he doesn't do it. The my oldest one who's 21, he also never got into TikTok. It's so like, but like the two middle ones, it like hits their generation. It's like that's their years is
Yeah.
TikTok. And for them, it was fascinating because it was like they were losing their family albums
Mm-hmm.
because they have lots of videos of each other. They have lots of videos of like stupid things we've done as a family, like just, like not the kind of orchestrated videos that go viral on TikTok, but like we're at this thing and, we're at a park and Logan is doing a weird Cockney accent because he's really good at accents and everybody's laughing about it. And like
Yeah.
that's so my daughter was like frantically saving all of her TikTok videos of the family so she didn't lose them. Anyway,
Yeah.
so in that like environment, what are we thinking? Where are we at with social media,
Yeah.
advertising, that stuff?
Well, so there are plenty of thoughts in my head right now. And I guess the one that at the end of the day is this is all not your land, right? It's like it's not your social media app that you own. You don't own your
Yeah.
community that's built on there, so it can go any day. And I think I actually just listened to a podcast with Joanna Penn in which she was talking about how it's important to be adaptable because things constantly change and you have to be aware that if you're building a community on something that you don't own, it can disappear tomorrow. And that's super important. TikTok was really annoying for the fact that it went on a ban because like I had TikTok go viral for more or less. I think it ended up with like 90 some thousand views on it. And
It's amazing.
I
Congratulations.
physically saw a different, not physically, but I visibly saw a difference in
Hmm.
sales after that date. Um, and like it's pretty different and significant. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. Um, so that was a big frustration that it went. Then there's also the verbiage that changed in Facebook about how they're willingly allowing hate speech against like LGBTQ people.
Hmm.
Like, I don't feel safe there, so I made the conscious decision to put a post there that says This is probably not going to be a place that I'm going to be at often. I'm not going to post a lot of here because I don't really want to create content there. Again, they're more than welcome to make those guidelines, but it's our decision whether or not we want to be there. At the end of the day, the most important thing is a newsletter, right? That's what it always drives down to is like, how can you make sure that you are able to connect with people regardless of where things end up? I will continue to be on TikTok at least for the foreseeable future. I also am on Blue Sky because that is a little bit more decentralized. I think you have more control over who follows you. You have a little bit of ability to reconnect with them. And then I'm also on Twitch because it's a live communication. I mean, I don't get to see the faces of the people I'm talking to, but they get to see me live. I get to
Mhm.
respond to their chat, and it creates this sort of community and connection. So I'm not getting rid of social media. I will constantly look at new opportunities. I'm in the beta test for the Neptune app, which is like a cross between TikTok and YouTube, because
Wow.
again, it's an opportunity to build an audience on another shared platform. But I
Yeah.
want to do that because I'm at the stage where I want to be discoverable. And in order to be discoverable, I have to go to the place where the people are. And the
Hmm.
people are on these social media apps. So my advice is just you have to be adaptable, but you have to constantly drive people towards like a newsletter or something that you, at the end of the day, can control.
Yeah, and just to say, like, I think too, you are a good writer with really strong books so that when people discover you, they stick. And I think that's important. Like what you're saying about hop, needing to hop from one social media place to another. I am encouraged for you because I think when people read your books, they're not going to be like, well, he's not on TikTok anymore, so I'm not reading his next book. I think your books are really good. And when people read them, they stick around. So, yeah. Uh, I'm in a, Laura, do you want to go next? Do you want me to go next?
Go for it.
I'm in a different place. I back in August and September, I was really trying hard to put Dialogue Doctor on social media. Um, I was spending like a couple hours a week making clips, um, mostly on Instagram and YouTube Reels. Um, and we're actually getting a lot of response from YouTube, which is great. But then I've just had this kind of hellish fall where I got really sick. I had scabies on my face, which is like, what in the world? No, shingles, not scabies. Shingles
Shingles.
on my face.
What?
Sorry, wrong disease.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had shingles on my face, which was really painful. I like, then all of December, we had two stomach flus rip through our house and the flu. And then I got a really horrible case of bronchitis that at one point I literally thought was going to kill me one night. But so, like, I just kind of wore out and I've kind of come out of it being like, I don't know that I have the energy to do that. So, and I'm not happy with the decisions social media platforms are making. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, I think getting rid of fact checkers and allowing people to say whatever they want is a really bad idea. Um, I'm not thrilled with that. And so I'm just kind of like, I went over to try Blue Sky to like just hang out there. I am hanging out there right now, but I gotta say, like, I don't get my news from social media and I don't do politics on social media. I get to read my local paper and I read a couple national papers during the morning when I'm drinking coffee. And so because I'm like 85 evidently. So
You are. Mm-hmm.
I don't like, so I don't, I'm not there for politics, but it doesn't, like, I had a nice clean blue stream. There's like all these people all of a sudden showed up there like Book Sky is here now. I'm like, oh, okay, this is fun. I guess this is what like Book Talk is coming over for like an hour. And then they went back. But so they were there. I was like, this is great. So I followed a couple authors, not realizing that those authors posted a lot of political stuff. And all of a sudden, all my feed now is all political. And I'm like, I didn't want, this wasn't why I'm here. Show me more books, show me less politics. But that's just so I don't know. I'm trying to like rebuild my will to keep working on things, and social media is just way down the list for me. Even though it's good for us discoverability, like we were getting a lot of discoverability from YouTube. And I don't have the energy to like put those reels together right now. So um yeah, I don't know. I might go back to it. But at the moment, I'm just taking a mental break. from social media, and I'm just kind of like trying out a new platform every once in a while. The problem with Blue Sky I have is that I'm not witty enough for Blue Sky. I'm not funny and I'm not witty on social media. I'm just kind of like, hey, the 85-year-old man is here with his opinions on books. That's, you know, and I'm definitely, nobody definitely wants to see me on video. I'm still shocked that we make videos of episodes, but that's, anyway, yeah, that's my social media take. I think, like, I've watched Sasha use it to build her empire. I think it's amazing. I think she's done an amazing job. JP, I've been watching you. I try to, every time I see one of your videos, I try to like it, like share it. I think it's great. I think you're doing a great job, but
Yeah.
I don't, I just can't get the will up to do it. And so, yeah,
And I don't
that's
think you
where I am.
have to is the key. You don't have to.
Yeah, I'm not good at it. It requires a lot of work. And I was using Opus X to create, I was taking our episodes, dropping them in. They cut them up, but I found that like their cutting wasn't great. I still had to spend like all this time editing their cuts because what they were cutting didn't always make sense. Like they'd cut like a 2-hour video and it would be like, they'd give me like 15 cuts. And it was amazing that they
Hmm.
would give me 15 cuts. But I, I never found one that I was like, oh, I can just leave this alone.
Hmm.
Every single one I had to go through and like edit and like change and they're super easy to edit. I'd imagine if I enjoyed it, it's something that I could spend hours doing every week. But for me, it was like I'm doing it after I've dropped podcast episodes and it's like Sunday night at 10:30. I'm like, I don't want to be doing this. So anyway, that's where I'll be Debbie Downer, but I'm not necessarily down on social media. I'm just personally like I, I feel like a little like I'm too old for this. Get off my lawn. Um, attitude toward it. Yeah. Laura, you got anything? But I'm not selling books on it either. So if you want to sell books, don't do what I'm doing. Do what JP's doing. Um,
Yeah, so I think that for me, it was a mental health decision for me. I would get sucked in and just like that was it. That was all I would do for hours and hours and hours. And I would find that I was seeing the same content over and over again, stuff that I didn't necessarily want to see. But if I hovered just long enough, then I'd get 7 or 8 more videos like that. And I just couldn't like there's nothing the whole purpose of like social media being like catch up with people I feel like has I guess I don't know if I'm using it wrong. I don't have enough people that I follow. I don't know. It was at a place for me that I couldn't I didn't feel healthy anymore doing it,
yeah,
which is a weird thing for me to say because like health has never really been a big part of my vocabulary. I think in 2024 I really tried to focus more on like my own mental health. I've always cared a lot about other people's mental health, but I always had this kind of like I'm winning attitude. So like
Hmm.
well, of course I'm winning. There's if I'm
yeah,
winning, there's like that equals good mental health, right? And I really realized with I had a great therapist who kind of really helped me realize that the language I was using internally wasn't actually healthy. Um,
mm,
Winning is not everything. So, like I realized, I guess in October going into November that it wasn't good for me. I, and that's for me. Like I know for a lot of people, social media is their outlet. It is their connection. It is their community. And I love that for them. And I applaud that. And for people who are using it especially people who are using it to find a community of people where they fit in because they don't necessarily have it in their physical community. I love that for them. And that's what scares me about all the new rules that are coming. And, I have this like internal battle with myself about like free speech, but what does free speech mean? And, like if we limit here, and this is like, but I also realize that I am not in a position to influence change. Like JP was saying, like they're not my platforms, right?
mhm.
So while I'm having like this moral battle about should Facebook allow for anybody to say anything. On one hand, I'm like, yeah, free speech. But then on the other hand, I'm like, but free speech shouldn't hurt, right? So it's like this weird conundrum that I have. And then I just realized that this is above my pay grade. I don't actually need, like, I can put my efforts and energies into places where I can actually influence change. So it felt really good for me to step back away from it. I will say, though, I'm not away from it completely. I do allow myself like 10 minutes a day to scroll, though I have tried to move out of the social media platforms and move to YouTube Reels.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel, I don't know if it's what I watched on YouTube versus what I watched. It feels much more like a book talk or a cooking whatever than it what I was seeing in Facebook. Um, because I do like that short bit of content, but I do feel that the short bites of content have made me intolerant to longer format things. We were talking today at work about American Primeval on TV, and I watched all 6 episodes, but like the story was fine, but I just wanted to criticize the story because it's like it wasn't moving fast enough for me. So I think that like moving away from that shorter format is actually going to be healthier for me in the long run.
Mm.
But what I started to say and then distracted myself because that's how I roll, is that I do find that now I have to figure out how to replace my what's in the world
Mm.
with something else. So finding what I want to read is much harder now because
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it constantly put in my face. But at the same time, I feel like I have much more control over curating what I actually want and not, oh, look at that. Because I'm the reason that stores put that display right by the cash register. Because I'm like, oh, yes, I need that. Oh, yes, I need that. So, like, if a book or a movie or a TV show, right? Like, I cannot tell you how many TV shows I've watched because the clip of like 2 minutes of the show shows up on my feed, and I'm like, oh yeah, I need to go watch that show, or oh yeah, I need to go watch that movie because I enjoyed 2 minutes of it.
Mhm.
In fact, I watched the entire series of This Is Us, which I did not enjoy at all. But once I got into it, I had to finish it because I started it. And I was like, people love this. Why do people love this? Anyway, so I have found that there's like benefits to being away from it, but drawbacks.
Mm.
So I don't know that that adds much value as far as like, how do you market to people like me? But
Well, hopefully people are
I
hearing what we're talking about and finding themselves
yeah.
and permission to be themselves since
Yeah.
we're coming from very different places.
Yeah. And I think like what's important for anyone who's trying to figure it out is like you don't have to be everywhere at once. I'm not I'm not planning on being on Facebook and Meta and Threads really at all. Um, and I'm really focusing on like Twitch and TikTok. And I'm the other thing too is study the platform, study what people who are doing it well are doing over there. And like I look up cozy fantasy videos and I see which audios are doing well
Mm.
and I add those to my favorites and I use those later. I see what kind of like image carousels are doing well and I adapt it to what I'm doing. So like going in there with a strategy of trying to figure out what other people are doing there to understand how people are responding to those types of videos. You don't have to have something brand new. You don't have to spend hours on it.
Mm.
At this point, the videos that I make take less than 10 minutes to do. Um, and sometimes even quicker. I can make a few drafts of them for TikToks. I'm not spending hours doing it. So it just takes a little bit of time to really understand the platform. And by doing that, you are researching people who are doing it well in and outside of your genre.
Yeah, that's a good final word. Let's move on to the next topic. Um, Before I start yelling about getting off my lawn again. Okay, so let's do branding. And I'm gonna throw it at us in two ways. Either success fail stories about branding, like what you've learned about branding, or what kind of brands attract you and what you like about branding, like what works for you. Um, I've worked really hard over the last 5 years to understand myself and my brand and who I am. And I finally do understand myself and my brand and who I am. And I'm trying to come to a place of accepting it. Um,
Hmm.
and so the best advice I got was from a book. I can't remember the name, but it's by Dana Kay. And in the
Your book,
book,
your brand.
thank you, your book, your brand. In the book, she says, if you've written books, go read those, like look at the books and look at what's common through all of them. So at that point, I had like, I think 9 books I'd written, and it was very clear that like I like humor and I like being funny and I like poignant, serious moments, specific, and I tend to have some form of class warfare in my books. That's just like, and I don't like being constrained by a genre. And so, my brand has become kind of like books that'll make you laugh and cry. And that's kind of where I live. I think the problem with for me is that once I discovered my brand, it was like, yeah, books that, and so it's I also put a lot of weird magic or supernatural stuff in my books. I can't seem to help it. It just kind of shows up. So it's like, okay, books that make you laugh or cry, with some fun magical things. And that's kind of where my brand lives. The problem is once you discover your brand, what I want my brand to be is Pulitzer Prize winning best author of all time. Right? Like what I want my brand to be is like radically changing forms of literature. And that is not who I am. I write funny, sometimes moving, ideally scenes, but more often than not, just silly nonsense. And I need to like embrace that. And that's been a whole different journey. So I think for me, there's been kind of 2 journeys. One is like discovering my brand and trying to nail it down to like 3 to 4 adjectives. And then after discovering my brand, then being like, oh, that is who I am. Now I have to live with that. So it's like 2 sides to that coin. Um, that's been my journey. And I do find it's easier. I used a lot of over the last 2 years, I used a lot of LLMs to help me, which was
Mhm.
good. Not necessarily to give me answers, but as to confirm suspicions, like giving them sections of my book and being like, hey, what do you see? How would you define this brand? Or giving them all of my book descriptions and being like, how would you define this brand? And, they very much confirmed what I knew about myself, but I didn't want to admit, which is that, like, I'm a great author if you're here to have a good time. Um, but I am likely never writing The Sun Also Rises, which is what I kind of internally want my brand to be. But so
Not
that's,
really a
yeah,
bad thing in my book.
yeah. I am also incapable of writing to genre conventions, which means selling for me is very difficult on platforms like Amazon. But that's a whole nother thing. So that's been my journey with branding.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to go next?
Sure.
Um, I also read your book, your brand, and that one really helped me figure out like the tagline that I currently use, but I think that I'm growing out of it. But it is the tagline: "Writer of things dark, strange, and queer."
It's a great
Um,
tagline.
it grabs people's attention. So
Yeah.
like, it's a really easy, really fast, and really punchy way to basically tell people whether they're in or they're out. And it it took a little bit, but it's the way that it sounds. It's the way that it hits. And like I was helping someone else with theirs, and it was the same thing. Like once we found the right one, you could tell there was a cadence to it and like a beat to it.
Mhm.
That really was the way to grab it. So I think it's important to figure out how you're going to sell yourself when you're in front of another person, because if you can convey something really quick. So like my first thing after, when someone comes up to my table, I'm like, hey, I'm JP Reinfeller the ninth. I'm the writer of Things Dark, Strange, and Queer.
Mhm.
Super fast. And then they listen to the rest of the spiel, but that's the first thing that they get. So I found that really useful. And right now, like, I think I'm more diving into like queer stories with current emphasis of cozy, but really it's just like I don't know, unapologetic queer stories,
Mm,
something along those lines. And that's really where I'm finding more joy in. So I'm thinking of what that rebrand will look like, but like
mm,
I even have it down to like it's not necessarily my website, but it's this camera, the lights, the certain colors in this are specific. I intentionally have this purple and pink and blue because like I wear a stupid Cheshire cat onesie on my stream because it's again, it's bright, it's vibrant, but it has something that sort of fits on brand. And so like I'm thinking about those things whenever I'm like presenting to other people because like even if it's just minor things, those are things that I'm thinking about.
mm.
So I think you both said not having to think about or worry about branding because I have the two of you to market the Dialogue Doctor and I just come along for the ride. I still don't know why you all let me ride along with you, but here I am. But I think you both said two things that are really important. Jeff, I think as you were kind of talking and you were understanding who you are versus who you want to be, I think the like authenticity of understanding and being able to say who you are and not who you want to be because as a consumer, nothing makes me angrier than feeling like I've been deceived.
Mm,
Like, I think this book is going to be this, and it turns out to be that. It it's very souring to me, and I'm less likely as a consumer to come back, even if I was pleasantly surprised by the experience. I feel like there's not to comment on the world right now, but I feel like there's so much ingeniousness that like having that authenticity, having a community of people I can trust. I want to put my resources to things that I actually want to support. And I feel like if I'm not, I don't actually have the ability to do that. It's not great. So I would definitely say making sure that you have like a clear understanding of who you are and selling yourself that way. And then JP, I will say like your tagline, I'm like I met you and that was like my first introduction to you. And I loved as you were like talking about that there are actually two things. When you were talking about the cadence of that, um, I think the ownership that you have over that, because you say it exactly the same way
Hmm.
every single time you say it. It reminds me of, God, I'm so old, like the old school jingles on TV, right?
Yeah.
Like calling your plumber, like the same tone of voice, the same speed, the same over and over and over again. And it becomes that like, oh yes, that's who JP is. I think that's really great. But I think the other part of what you said that I think is so important is your brand doesn't have to stay the same forever.
Yep.
As you grow and as you change, your brand can grow and change. At work, we talk about our company logo pretty regularly. And there's this idea that no, the logo shouldn't change because people know the logo. But if you go back, I mean, there are tons and tons and tons of videos of like watching Coca-Cola's logo change. Everybody knows
Hmm.
it still looks like Coca-Cola or HP or LG, like all of them, they change. It's subtle, but they change. And I think that that's an important thing that, and I think it goes back to like what I was talking about with Jeff and the authenticity is like, it's okay for your brand to change, but if you're changing, like be empowered by that and like own it and go with it because not everything you do has to be the same thing. Everybody's going to get bored with that at some point. Like embrace the change, but just be like be willing and be able to change it. So
Yeah.
those are my non doing it thoughts on branding.
yeah, and I think just to add to what you're saying, because you said something that kind of sparked this idea in my head. As you brand, I think there's also a question of what are you hoping to get out of your brand? Like,
Mm,
if you're branding specifically for sales, then I think looking at, the whole Seth Godin thing, people like us buy things like this, understanding the brands that you're like adjacent to and going for those is really important. So like if you're branding yourself to sell cozy romance, your brand should look like other cozy romance, right? Like, and
Hmm.
that's that's important because those shoppers are like people like us buy things like this. I like things like this. This is interesting to me. You know, I personally have kind of decided like if I sell fiction, it's going to be the long tail. It's going to be a slow, steady sale of me like 20 years from now finally building a giant following of people. But that's and I've come to a place where like I'm okay with that. Like that's I'm okay with that being so when I talk about my fiction brand, I'm like, it's more about self-understanding so that I can be kind of at peace with what I'm writing than it is about selling. And so I think stopping and asking yourself, why am I asking this question about branding is also super important because mixed reasons to pursue a brand will really mess up your pursuit. It'll really screw you
Yeah.
up. Like, because if you're looking for self-understanding, going to look at other authors' brands that you want to emulate is not a good idea. If you're looking for selling brands because you're like, no, no, I'm trying to sell right now. I write fiction to sell. Then you need to look at other author brands and just looking within yourself and what you like is a bad idea because you may even down to like you were JP, you were talking about colors, even down to like, I love the color green. Writing thrillers with the color green on the cover is not a good idea. That's not what sells thrillers. So like, that kind of like understanding of what you're after too is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or words on branding?
I
Okay.
definitely think the
Oh,
Your Book, Your Brand is go
that's
read
great.
that. It's a good
It's
one.
great. It's like a workbook style book. Really good. Very well done. Um,
And Dana's
s-
great.
Dana's great. Super easy to understand. Um, she's a marketer for a living, so there's a ton of good advice in there. Um, but yeah, really good. Okay, let's talk about last topic. We have about 15 minutes left. Let's talk about organizing complex work. How do you organize complex work?
Sorry, before we get into that, what is this time limit you're giving
I
us?
have
Yeah,
I
what the
have a
hell was that?
I actually have an editing session. I have to meet
You've
a client in
you've
15
never
minutes.
given us a time limit
I'm so
before.
sorry. I know I'm a jerk. I didn't warn you either. I'm
No,
just
you
surprising
didn't.
you now.
All of my answers would have been
Yeah.
very different up to this point.
But in 15 minutes, the Zoom just automatically shuts off.
Okay.
So just like,
Cool.
I'm just kidding.
All right.
Great.
You're not. It will. You'll just be like, all right, that's over. Bye. And you'll close it off.
Thanks everybody. I'm hitting stop.
All right.
Cool.
I
What
am
if I did
actually
stop just
happy.
then? That
What
would have
if
been
you
the
did?
best.
And then this was
I
the
mean,
bonus episode.
that's right. I actually will take the complex work. If you don't mind, I'll go first on
Please
that
do.
one.
Yeah, please.
So I'm working with an author right now, who is writing an amazing, amazing book. And it's got three different timelines all blended together, like 4, 5 POV characters, lots and lots and lots of detail, and trying to help keep all of that information organized has definitely been a challenge. So the one thing that I have learned more than anything else in helping him work with this book is similar to what we've been talking about kind of throughout, is that your organizational technique needs to fit what you are currently doing and the problem that you are currently working on. So often we get this question. I feel like we get this question all the time. How do I organize? How do I work on this? What tools should I be using? All of these things, as if there's like one answer that works for the whole everything that you're writing, everything that you're doing, every part. And I would just really like encourage you to use the tools that work for the problem at hand. If you're organizing characters, my recommendation for organizing characters is going to be very different if you're a plotter than if you're a pantser. And again, I don't love plotters and pantsers as like a general concept because I think we're all a blend of all of them. But like, figure out what your strengths are, figure out what your weaknesses are. Do you love technology? If so, then you should use a technology piece as a tool for you. If you don't like technology, go old school and use something that feels really good to you, because your organizational model should not be harder than writing. Writing is
Mm.
hard enough. Don't challenge yourself. Oh, I'm going to learn Excel or I'm going to learn Google Sheets because the Dialogue Doctor team uses Google Sheets to organize. Don't like, or this, I'm going to use this notebook because this author uses this notebook and it works really well. You really have to figure out, like, know yourself. And if you have questions and you like want to talk to one of us about like what you should be using or what might work for you, like any of us can do that with you. But I just think, like, before you all talk about like what's worked for you all, working in different sections of this book has helped me understand that different tools for different times, different people, different needs. There's my spiel. Now you all can give actual practical advice.
That's good
Good luck,
stuff.
everybody.
I'm constantly changing my systems. I used to be obsessed with spreadsheets, as probably many people listening know. But I found this, like 2024 being such a difficult year, I found real comfort in actual like pen and paper journaling. So I I'm using that now to organize books. I have a journal for nerds, which is hard when you're co-writing with somebody because I don't know how to share it with him. Um, and then have I have a journal for the new book I'm writing. I just bought it. It's green because I love the color green. And then, it's just a place where like I can sit and just sketch out thoughts. So and there is a weird combo of like we live in a tech world, but I like pen and paper right now. So like today on the way home from work, I had like an hour and 20-minute drive home from the office, and I turned on ChatGPT and like brainstormed with ChatGPT about the book for an hour. And I don't know how to I'll probably look at the draft of those notes and then copy what I like with pen and paper into my journal. But it's just it's a weird. In the middle of my conversation with ChatGPT, it changed from the premium voice to the non-premium voice. And I definitely felt like, listen, poor person, you have
Listen,
to talk to the
poor.
regular chat. You poor have to talk to the regular chat GPT now. And I was like, what happened to all the nice inflections in your voice? Anyway, um, yeah, that's my that's my 2 cents. So I think it's okay to change your system
Yeah.
in between projects. Don't change your
Hmm.
system mid-project. Change in between projects.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm also just going to vent about this. You do not need to save every draft of your novel. You do not. Do
Shut
not
up.
do that. You
Stop.
do not need to do that.
Do I have
One,
I would
50
actually
drafts?
disagree with that. I was editing for a client and I lost 3 chapters of edits.
but that's okay. Like you need one or two old drafts, and then you're the one you're working on. That's it. You don't need 50 drafts. You don't. You're never going to look at them. And nobody's going to. I talk to a lot of authors who are like, I have 50 drafts. And there's this secret hope that like someday there'll be an amazing author and people want to go back and look at those drafts. Never going to happen. Nobody's doing that. It's not
So,
happening.
for those of you who are listening to the podcast and not watching the video, JP is pantomiming in the background that he has 50 drafts and that what Jeff is saying is not true, which brings me back to my
It
what
is
I
true.
said in the beginning
It
is,
is true.
if keeping 50 drafts makes you feel secure in what you're doing, keep 50 drafts. If you don't need them because you're ready to move forward, don't keep them. There is no right and wrong. You are an individual. Be your own person.
If you get on a call with your editor, and you all know who I'm talking to because I've said this to you on calls, and you go, wait, did I send you the right draft of this? You have too many drafts.
I don't care. If you have 3
On the
drafts and
back.
you're not sure which one to send me all 3.
Yeah.
I will open them up in Word. I will do a comparison. I have a tool to do that. Do what works best for you because it's your book.
It is your book,
You
and
do
that is
you.
true. But
I
you don't need 50 drafts.
I just use the online draft, and then whenever I need it saved, I save it, and then I forget about all of the previously saved ones.
That's okay.
So it's like revision 50, and I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
whoops.
That's
I
okay.
so Jay Thorne is coming on the podcast in a couple weeks to talk about a new AI tool he's built. And he asked me, can you send me a version of one of your books? And I opened up my Megan and the Monsters folder, which was a book I wrote 13 years ago. I have a draft that says old version. I have a draft that says edited version. I have a draft that says final version. And I was like, you can have the final version. And that's all I needed. It's all you need.
Congratulations. I'm glad that works for you. That
All you
doesn't work
need.
for everyone.
Can I talk about my
That's fair.
process really quick?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Since
I'll get us
Jeff
back
has
on
a
track.
time limit.
Since
Get off my lawn,
we
JP.
have a time
No, I'm just
limit or
kidding.
something. Okay, so
I'm
I
just
know there's going to be a timer showing up on the screen here in a minute. Countdown clock. Sorry, JP, go ahead.
it's fine. It's fine. I'll just judge everybody. So I think like part of this question wasn't it about like how do you have like these big complex ideas in an overarching arc and make sure that you're hitting those points? Is that kind of what we're
there was a version of we got this question in a couple different ways, but there was a version of the question that yes
okay?
was like, how do I organize all these insane thoughts I have in my head?
So I'm gonna talk about my process because I can. Because I have a microphone and we're
Yeah.
recording. So because I write
Until Jeff
serials,
turns the recording off.
yeah, we get cut off right now. So because I write serials and especially right now with the contracted work and I'm writing 2 serials a week, I'm not really going back after I edit. So there was a lot of beforehand stuff that went into place. The contract was signed for 60 chapters, but with the potential to continue on if it does well. So I had to provide enough content to hit 60 chapters and then also come up with ideas as to what will be next. Once that got approved, and of course, I'm saying this as if it was a back and forth, but if you are writing this and it's your own story, you can also be your own approver. You can tell yourself, this is a good story and I'm going to continue on. I then did an outline and I have these goalposts of things and that I want to hit throughout the story, expectations that I would have if I'm writing a 60 chapter serial and I want it to feel like it's a full and complete story on its own, then around the 30 marker, there's probably going to be some type of death moment or some type of big revelation. And I can play with, maybe every 10 chapters, something happens that I have these little tent posts to go towards. So as I'm writing out my outline, I'm putting like a sentence per each thing. Then once I feel comfortable with how that story flows, I'm going and I'm writing these chapters week by week, and I'm grabbing 2 of them and I'm fleshing out that sentence at the time that I'm writing it. So I'm creating these story beats and then I'm going in and drafting and editing, and I will never touch it again. And then I will go on to the get next one and I will flesh that out. As I'm doing that, I'm not always listening to what the outline is going to be. I'm considering what the outline has been because I'm doing a process where I cannot go backwards to fix things. I can only go forwards to put things in there as if they were intended to be there the whole time. So there are things that I will put in place, little Easter eggs that usually I'll pick back up on, like a character who appears and tells a story about a box that they opened and then everything went dark. And that's it. Look, a little thread that I can pick up later and fall into the story as to like, how do they get this box and how do they do all that? And then it's as if that was intended to be there that whole time. It wasn't. I just threw it in there at the beginning because it was a perfect little thread to put at the beginning. And there are like when you see stories like this, you can see these little threads that are put in place, and you as you continue your story on, they're there for you to pick up on. And I really implore people, if they want to try this process of not being able to go back, it is really fun to try and write yourself back out of the holes that you put yourself in. And I think I've rewritten my outline 2 or 3 times now because I intentionally break it. And that's like just part of the fun process of like, well, I broke it, but I still have to write 60 chapters. So how can I amp it up and how can I make it better? And I'm still, the end of the story is still the exact same. It's just how we get there is maybe a little different. So that's my process. It won't work for everybody, but it is like a mix between outlining and pantsing, I would say, because I'm not looking at that chapter until that week, and then I'm just sort of building it as I go.
Yeah, I think I think part of the reason you and I work well together, much better than your other fictional co-writer who doesn't actually
A.B.
exist.
Cohen.
He has no name. Uh, you and I work well together because I'm similar. I like it's that living outline of like
Hmm.
you have to keep, and I mean, you can explain the frustration I create writing nerds where I'm like in the middle of a chapter and I'm like, you know what? We're going,
Fell in love with a
JP's
mop.
outline said this, we're going this way. And now it's like, oh, hey, by the way, now we have to work a mop into all of
Yeah.
our scenes moving forward. So yeah, I think there's a beautiful chaos in that. And I think like when you're organizing things, keeping a living outline that you like have the flexibility to change, however, wherever you're keeping that or however you're keeping it. I think giving yourself the freedom to like go chaos is healthy. Good.
If that's healthy and comfortable for you, if everything that Jeff and JP just said makes your stomach hurt, that's not the kind of author you are.
Don't do
You
that. Yeah,
don't
that's
have
true.
to do that.
You're
Also,
correct.
JP, you missed a perfect opportunity. You were talking about how Jeff could cut your microphone off at any time. You missed the perfect opportunity to just like stop talking
Hmm.
mid-sentence and we'd all be like, what just happened?
Just to
I
So
know.
pretend
like
that I cut you off.
lost ending
Yeah.
Darn
stuff.
Um, all right. Any final thoughts? Anything else we want to add today? Any other
Happy
coaches?
2025.
Happy 2025. All the coaches have editing blocks available right now. So
And
come to
ask me
dialoguedoctor.com
anything.
and sign up to edit.
Oh, sorry, you were saying it as I was saying it. Also, we have Ask Me Anythings. So
Yeah.
if you don't have something written, but you need help organizing, if you need help figuring out which organizational tools or branding
Mhm.
or whatever, those are great for Ask Me Anythings.
Yeah, I have one author who has a standing monthly Ask Me Anything with me. She just,
Nice.
and they're cheap. They're $69. She just gets on
Yeah.
a call. We jump on a call for an hour and she's just like, okay, here's what I'm working on. Just talk me through it. And
I
it's
did
a
a
lot of fun.
cool Yeah, I did a cool Ask Me Anything in December where the author literally pulled up the chapter they were working on and I live edited it. So if
That's great.
you need an edit but don't have the resources to do an editing session, you don't get I mean, I wasn't able to edit the whole thing, but I was able to give a lot of tips and examples. And
Mm.
um, so I think the thing is that we have whatever your resources allow for, we have something to help you.
And
So
On
the community is super cheap. It's $5 a month. Go
yeah.
for it, JP. What were you saying?
I was just saying, one of the upcoming ones I'm doing, we are pulling tarot cards and fleshing out our story that we're writing. So
fun.
That's super fun. I was going to ask you to do a tarot card session with me for the new book I'm writing,
sure.
just for fun, just to figure out. Yeah. Because I've never done tarot cards before. So I was like, I should ask JP to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It'll be
Yeah.
fun because I've never done it like on a recording with somebody. So we have to like come up with stuff on the spot, which I love doing.
Oh, let's do that. I'm gonna ask you to do a session with me where, because I have to come up with 7 challenges for my little characters to run through New York doing. I think we could pull tarot cards
Perfect.
for each of those.
That'd
Yeah,
be fun.
that'd be fun. Um, all right. Well, thanks, y'all. I think
Thank you.
I'm gonna stop the recording. We can talk amongst ourselves without everybody else.
About all of you.